It has been a little while since Project Spectrum has hosted one of these webinars, so we're really thankful that we have such a tremendous attendance today. And we want to make sure that you understand that we really do intend going forward to conduct more of these sessions. Now, some of them are going to take a deeper dive into elements that we'll touch on in this broad brush overview webinar. So be on the lookout for that. But we want to make sure that you understand that your feedback as to what you want to learn more about in the future, how we can improve our products and services, that is paramount. And we're going to make sure that we are letting you know how to provide that feedback for us. So just be ready for that, because again, we'll be soliciting that feedback from you. So just so everybody understands who I am, my name is Rick. Last name is Ostapovich, but I always tell people Rick O is perfect, as in, oh my gosh, that's a long last name that I don't want to learn how to pronounce. So I'm part of the communications and outreach team for Project Spectrum. Now, Project Spectrum is a U.S. Department of Defense recognized cybersecurity awareness initiative. We're going to be talking about that today. But this is how I come into play. I am part of the communications and outreach team. And we have other members of our Project Spectrum team online today. So we want to make sure that you all understand that we are all here en masse to welcome you and hopefully give you some really great information today. Now, before we dive in, just want to make sure that you understand a couple of housekeeping notes. We want to make sure that your microphone stays muted. As much as we want to give everyone a voice, we do understand that particularly in the days of working remotely, we have everything from children to pets to construction to vacuum cleaners and everything in between. So please make sure that your microphone stays muted. Make sure you check and see how your name is displayed. We want to make sure that others can see who else is on the webinar, because again, this is not just an informational opportunity, but it's a good networking opportunity. Last but not least, you're going to have questions as we go through this webinar, and we encourage those questions big time. Just make sure that you place those questions in the chat or Q&A box, and we're going to review and answer them as time permits. Sometimes we'll answer them, or I will provide an answer. Sometimes we'll provide an answer in chat. So make sure you're watching, because we will try to respond however we can, as best as we can. So let's talk a little bit about the Department of Defense, the Office of Small Business Programs, and the Defense Industrial Base. The OSBP, which is the Office of Small Business Programs, recognizes that the threat environment and the need to help small businesses is crucial to getting the defense industrial base, or the DIB as we call it, as strong as it can be. They're looking to help the resource constraint obstacles go away. And that's really, how this has all come about, because the backbone of the DIB are the small and medium-sized businesses. And those businesses, as you'll see during this webinar, are particularly at risk. They're often resource constrained when it comes to investing in cybersecurity, and there are a lot of reasons for that. So there was a need for providing a no-cost resource to help companies defend themselves against threat actors. And that's why Project Spectrum is an outstanding resource for you to tap into. So when it comes to Project Spectrum, this is what you can expect when you become a registered user. You have access to our all-inclusive learning platform, and that provides resources, tools, training materials, educational videos, and the like, all about cybersecurity best practices. We also offer personalized assistance that is going to focus on helping your organization achieve that CMMC certified status. And CMMC, of course, stands for the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. And again, we're going to talk about that as we go on through this webinar. So what is our purpose today? We're here to provide you with some education. First of all, we're going to talk about the current cyber threat environment. And boy, is it massive. Anybody who hears the name CrowdStrike is sort of having that little shiver of fear. We're also going to talk about cybersecurity best practices, cybersecurity compliance regulations and obligations, and then we're going to talk about how Project Spectrum offers you products and services that can assist in your cybersecurity compliance journey. So that's really the gist of everything we're going to be talking about today. This is going to be a high level overview. Our intent is to follow up with a deeper dive into the elements that we have within this webinar, and your feedback again is going to help us shape those follow-on webinars. So please make sure that you are providing us with that feedback. Please make sure you ask questions as you need, and please make sure that you register for Project Spectrum and take advantage of the resources that we have, because we're going to help you focus on the compliance, what the federal regulations are, how they apply to you, and how we can help you meet them. Now, before we dive into the cyber threat environment, I want to emphasize that Project Spectrum is part of a much bigger cog. Now, you're also part of that cybersecurity solution space. You see, threat actors are very sophisticated. They're often backed by nation states. And in order to defend your organization and our national security properly, we need to bring all these potential resources to bear. That requires a group effort of what we call the Cybersecurity Collective. See, we need help and guidance from government to ensure that we're all required to properly protect sensitive data. Then we need their funding and technical acumen as well to make that happen. The military is a critical part of that equation. We do this to protect the warfighter first and foremost. Think about that when you're inclined to think that properly securing your data is not that important. Just as importantly, though, the US military is a force and brings many resources to bear in developing next-gen cybersecurity solutions. As with any great endeavor, we need outstanding academics and researchers to bring their wares to the fight. Our academic institutions play a key part in research and development, and they help us to produce the next generation of cybersecurity experts. Last but not least, the category most of you reside in is industry. It's not just Microsoft and McAfee that are part of this fight. We're all part of this fight. We need innovation from underutilized resources like small and medium-sized businesses. We need contributions from traditionally underserved industry communities. In short, we need all of you. And that is what Project Spectrum is all about. We're here to help small and medium-sized businesses that comprise the DIB with their cybersecurity. As you'll see later, we're only as strong as our weakest link. And our mission is to help you ensure that you're not that weakest link and that you're not vulnerable. So here we go. We're talking about the DIB being under attack, and small businesses, as you see, are on the front line. You see, small businesses comprise 73% of the DIB. And given that they're awarded about 25% of all DoD contracts, it's really evident that small businesses are the most essential component of the DIB. But many of you still don't believe that you're a target. I can't understand why. So we'll leave it to the experts at Forbes. They documented in a recent small business survey that 57% of small businesses don't believe that they're a target for attacks. Well, let me just be the one to tell you, you need to believe it. While small, these businesses are the top target for hackers. They account for 43% of all data breaches. So why is it that small businesses are targeted? You see, adversaries and criminals alike, those threat actors, realize that small businesses are often resource constrained. That means they're forced to focus more on production than they are on security decisions, particularly in comparison with larger contractors. And when faced with that decision, it's really not a Sophie's choice. Production usually wins out, and that leaves security more spotty. Adversaries want the easiest path possible, and many times small businesses present that easy path. And further, while you may not be the primary target, you may be a gateway to a larger and more lucrative upstream target. The intel community does it. Why not the bad guys? Like all chains, The DIB chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and that's going to be a prevailing theme as we go throughout this webinar. So how is it that they do it? So most cyber attacks, though sometimes nuanced, follow a remarkably similar methodology. The cyber kill chain is a model that was developed by Lockheed Martin to describe the stages of a cyber attack, and we've demonstrated those here. This outlines the sequence of steps a threat actor must complete to successfully carry out an intrusion. So here are the bullet points summarizing the cyber kill chain framework. First of all, you have reconnaissance. This is where they identify targets and gather information to plan the attack. Then you've got weaponization, creating malware to exploit vulnerabilities in the target system. Then we go to delivery. This is transmitting the weaponized bundle to the target environment. Exploitation is where they trigger the malware to execute on the target system. Installation is installing a backdoor to allow persistent access to the target system. Command and control. This is where they establish a channel to remotely control the compromised system. And then last but certainly not least, the actions on objectives. They execute their intended actions, such as data exfiltration or destruction. This cyber kill chain really is a reality, particularly when it comes to small and medium-sized businesses, but really any type of organization, whether it's a government agency, whether it's academia, whether it's industry, no matter the size, this is how they do it. This is their playbook. So regardless of that threat actor's sophistication, most cyber attacks rely on unwitting help from users. You see, opening an infected attachment or clicking on a phony link, that's usually the first step in releasing malware onto a system or ransomware. It's essential that we develop cybersecurity training programs to educate our users. 62% of users are not provided with cybersecurity training resources by their organizations. You see, if your business doesn't have a cybersecurity training program in place, you're really falling short. A recent study revealed that 68% of users who received cybersecurity awareness training felt more prepared to identify phishing attacks and not fall for them. 58% reported that the training made them rethink their personal password management practices. It's not just about making sure that your password isn't password anymore. You really do need to go through all these steps because the way that they can guess these things is getting more and more sophisticated. Remember, it's not just the expert computer scientists or cybersecurity practitioners who need to be well trained. We need to make sure all users are educated so they don't unwittingly provide attackers access into our systems. Now, if you don't have a training program in place, then you've definitely come to the right place. Engage with the Project Spectrum team, and we certainly can help you develop one. Now, another critical element these days is what's known as foreign ownership, control, or influence, also known as FOCI. This is a major concern for government agencies. You have to understand that if you're a small business and you're looking for capital or resources, and then all of a sudden a foreign investor or supply chain partner or business leader comes along and offers to help you, we understand that could be very attractive. But you need to understand that having foreign investment, foreign supplier, or a foreign partner sitting on your board or advising your company may constitute FOCI, and that could affect your company's ability to qualify for or maintain a facility security clearance. Also, any government contracts that require access to classified information will not be awarded to companies that operate under FOCI unless adequate safeguards are put in place to protect national security. Now, that makes it readily apparent that we cannot fall under any foreign influence on your company or your operations if you're protecting sensitive US data, and you have to ensure that you don't fall under FOCI. As a matter of fact, FOCI is so important that it was written into the NDAA in fiscal year 2023. Section 875 required the Department of Defense to establish a program that demonstrated commercial due diligence tools, techniques, and processes that would help small businesses identify attempts by malicious foreign actors to gain undue access to or foreign ownership, control, or influence over the business. Now, to that end, Project Spectrum did develop an online course about understanding foci that we highly recommend that you access once you become a registered user. And hopefully everybody's going to leave here today and do that. All right, so let's go ahead and take a knowledge check. Let's take a temperature of the room. Why are small businesses being targeted? Go ahead and type your answer into the chat function. Is it A, intellectual property, B, access to sensitive government information, C, interconnection with larger defense contractors, or D, all of the above? I'm seeing a lot of D's, and few people put multiple D's. Yes, absolutely. D, all of the above. These are all reasons that small businesses are being targeted. So if that small business is you, if you have intellectual property, if you have that access to sensitive government information, and you're connected with a larger defense contractor, guess what? You have that big old target on you, and we want to make sure that you keep yourself safe and keep your business safe, keep your operation safe, and that's what we're here. So let's take a look at a cyber attack case study. Ticketmaster, one of the most prominent companies in the world, right? You probably read about that Ticketmaster hack back in late May and the associated spillage of more than 500,000 company records. Now, if you've used Ticketmaster, there is a good chance that some of your PII or personally identifiable information was in those exposed records. Ticketmaster, you have to understand, is a huge company. They sell more than 500 million tickets to events every year, 18 tickets per second, every second of every day. So if a company that large, with the tremendous resources that they have and the ability to hire the best cybersecurity practitioners available, was still hacked, do you still think your company is invulnerable? So back to the threat actors. Now, it was a very sophisticated Russian-backed group that was at the root of the Ticketmaster debacle, we'll call it. And as we mentioned, even a resource-rich behemoth like Ticketmaster was exploited. So how exactly did the threat actors do it? Well, they didn't attack Ticketmaster directly. They went through a third party, a much smaller and less prominent company. They compromised and stole credentials from that smaller company. Sound a little familiar? A smaller company that was vulnerable and then led to a larger attack on a bigger entity? It sounds like it could be one of your companies, right? If, again, you think you're not a target, you need to think again, because as we're going to say multiple times, our chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and you don't want to be the weakest link. Now, in this instance, the credentials that were compromised didn't just lead to access to Ticketmaster, because you have to understand, Ticketmaster shares the same secure cloud as many other companies. The stolen data as part of this threat actor incident gave the keys to the cloud and to the other companies that were associated with it. This is where that ripple effect really starts to hurt. A compromise on a small company can lead to something much bigger down the road. We want to make sure that you are aware of that and make sure that that isn't something that happens to you and then affects you in multiple ways, as we'll talk about. So let's go back to taking the temperature of the room. Here is another poll question for you. Now, if you were notified during this webinar that your organization had a breach, How many of you would know precisely what to do? Go ahead and type that into the chat. We're getting some A's, some B's, some yeses, some no's, some maybes with longer explanations. We like longer explanations. I really like to see the number of A's and yeses that we're seeing, because it really does mean that there are people, that are on top of this. But quite frankly, you have to remember, there are a lot of people that are still typing B. There are a lot of people saying no. And even sometimes, and please, I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but sometimes someone who thinks they know exactly what to do might be missing a few steps. Now, as part of Project Spectrum's registered user base, you're going to have access to our cyber advisors. These are folks who can help you develop a plan to inform immediate and effective recovery and remediation action. So we want to make sure that you understand we will help you to develop exactly what you need to do. We will help you develop those plans. Now, many businesses that are hit by attacks, quite frankly, never recover. We've all heard stories about ransomware attacks where an attacker locks your system and files and holds them hostage until you pay a ransom. And the threat actors are getting even more brazen. Nowadays, it's not just demanding a ransom. After that, they then try to extort you even further by saying, well, we've given you access to your data, but we made copies of it. And now you have to pay us more money not to release that information. It is getting worse and worse. And many businesses can't afford the ransom or the extortion after, and it ends up ruining them. But let me just tell you, the ransom is just the tip of the iceberg regarding the costs that are incurred. What about the days that your business is down during the attack? What about the lost revenue while you're non-operational due to that attack? What about the cost of your reputation when it comes to customers, when it comes to larger partners, when it comes to the government, when it comes to other government contractors that could be potential partners? That reputational damage is so, so high. When they hear that you were exploited, they're not going to want to work with you. And all of that is such a tremendous cost that it is really very difficult for anybody to recover from. But that recovery remediation plan, it's critical. It's going to help you. You need to have that plan in place, and it governs your every move after incurring a breach. What you're doing is developing a playbook that can help you take immediate recovery actions and then significantly reduce your downtime and your lost revenue. If you don't have that robust recovery plan in place, that's where, again, our cyber advisors can come in and help you to develop one. Also, want to mention cyber insurance. This is an emerging but rather underutilized field. There are a lot of businesses that think that their general business insurance covers cybersecurity and cyber attacks. It doesn't. You need a very specialized cyber security insurance policy in order to make sure that your business is truly protected. Sadly, only 20% of businesses have that cyber insurance. It is costly. We're not going to lie to you. It really does have a price tag to it. But given the cost associated with a data breach, can you really afford to not consider it? Now, of course, protecting assets is an ongoing process. Trust me when I say it never stops and it always needs to evolve. We have a saying, there's no winning cybersecurity. It's not a destination, it's a journey. Once you establish a network baseline and develop complete insight into the activity on your network, you have to maintain that. Project Spectrum is offering, again, at no cost to the user, expert advice as to how you can best evolve your network security and manage any risk that is present or newly introduced. Now, the critical things that we can help you with include these measures: patching systems, training your personnel, updating your antivirus software, exercising caution with plug-in devices like USBs, How many of us have done that? We've come across a USB that we find sitting somewhere and like, oh, let's see what's on this. Bad idea. Backing up your systems frequently, disabling those remote desktop controls. These are just some of the practices that you can utilize to be less likely a victim of a successful cyber attack from threat actors. So, as we say here, risk management, it's a key element of any cybersecurity program. No business, big or small, has unlimited resources. There are no blank checks these days anymore. We always have to find a way of deciding how to invest in each of these best practice categories. And to do that, you need a detailed risk management plan. You can't protect everything everywhere all of the time. You need to make sure that you have risk-based decisions as where to best invest your limited resources. And that's where a risk management plan comes into play and is essential for any business. It starts with just some simple questions that you see here: the complexity of your network, the sensitivity of your data, what's your budget, and what are your compliance obligations. All of that ends up being part of the plan. So, how have compliance regulations evolved? Well, let's just start back in 2010 with Executive Order 13,556. This is what established the CUI designation, the Controlled Unclassified Information Program. It standardized the way that the executive branch of the US government handled unclassified information that still required some protection. Now, as part of that executive order, it was recognized that contractors would require mandatory cybersecurity standards and guidelines to ensure the proper protection of CUI. Then in 2014, the National Institute of Standards and Technology released the first version of Special Publication 800 171. We refer to this in the cybersecurity community as the gold standard. This recognized the absence of standard cybersecurity guidance and the void of requirements governing the handling of controlled unclassified information. And that really left protected government networks unprotected. That's why NIST stepped in to fill that void. Then back in 2020, given the growing and complex threats and elements and threat actors that came along that were specifically targeting the defense industrial base, the US Department of Defense recognized that more needed to be done to protect sensitive government data. And that's when they developed CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. Now, that was version 1.0. And in 2020, the CMMC program came out with 5 levels. They were designed to increase assurance that contractors and subcontractors met cybersecurity requirements that applied to acquisition programs and systems that processed controlled unclassified information. In November of 2021, the DoD announced CMMC 2.0. And this was updating that program structure and requirements. And it was really designed to achieve primary goals of internal review, safeguarding sensitive information to enable and protect the warfighter, enforce DIB security standards when it comes to cybersecurity, and meet those evolving threats. Ensure accountability while minimizing barriers to compliance with DoD requirements. They perpetuated a collaborative culture of cybersecurity and cyber resilience and maintained a public trust through high professional and ethical standards. So this is really what was going on with CMMC 2.0. And CMMC 2.0, now it's a model of 3 levels. Level 1 is considered foundational. This really is for basic safeguarding for businesses that only handle FCI or federal contract information data. CMMC Level 2 is considered advanced. This is where we have enhanced data safeguards for businesses that handle CUI, the controlled unclassified information, both in prioritized and non-prioritized data acquisitions. CMMC Level 3 is considered as expert. This is for high capacity in safeguarding CUI data in which this type carries the highest priority DoD programs. So as you can see, CMMC has quite a bit to it. So what does that mean to you as far as your CMMC obligations? Well, businesses regularly ask us that question. The answer is simple. It's all about the data. The sensitivity of your data defines your CMMC obligations. We have two categories of information, as we just said. We have federal contract information and we have controlled unclassified information. If you store either, you have CMMC compliance obligations. Now, in most instances, the government makes it easier than that. Going forward, all government solicitations will actually list information about the data associated with the contract and thereby give you what level of CMMC compliance is required. So when it comes to CMMC level 1, and again, this is where most companies reside. Most companies are at the CMMC level 1 area. You've got 6 domains that you really need to focus on. First of all is access control. This focuses on the tracking and understanding of who has access to your systems and your network. Then you have identification and authentication, which focuses on identifying, tracking, and ongoing maintenance of media. Then you have media protection. This focuses on properly securing any media on your system to ensure the protection of FCI or CUI. Then you have physical protection. This is controlling access to your physical facility and media, logging entry, making sure your access is covered. I mean, think of it. How many people work in a place now where they have a loading dock? Is that loading dock properly secured? Do people have to sign in and out of that loading dock, or do people come in and out of there all day? How many people go outside for a break to enjoy the nice weather? We have sunshine here in Maryland right now, at least as far as I can see out my window. This is a day where people might want to go outside. How many times have you gone outside to enjoy the nice weather and you start to walk back in and someone says, "Oh, could you hold the door for me?" That you don't know, and do you let them in? It's what physical protection is all about. Your system and communications protection. This requires organizations to monitor, control, and protect all communications that are transmitted or received by their systems. And then you have system and information integrity. This provides assurance that the information being accessed has not been tampered with or damaged by an error in the information system. All of these domains and controls take some understanding. We have the ability to help you do that. You see, as part of Project Spectrum, you have access to our numerous no-cost education resources. This includes courses that enable your practitioners to take a deep dive into all the levels, all the domains, all the controls, and learn the best practices associated with CMMC. Additionally, we cover key concepts like FOCI, CUI, and risk management. Equally important, we offer courses that are going to better your understanding as, to develop and produce critical artifacts like your system security plans and plans of action and milestones, SSPs and POAMs. Cybersecurity threats and security evolve. That's why we have an expert in-house team of course designers and cyber advisors who help develop these new courses as threats, security, and tradecraft evolve and continue to threaten your organization. So one of the questions we're often asked at Project Spectrum is, has anybody ever gotten CMMC certification and how did they do it? Well, we've got a case study that we always like to present. So here we have a successful compliance journey. And please understand, I'm going to put a little caveat on this. Every company is different. Every organization is different. They all have different knowledge. They all have different starting points. They all have different resources that are available. So again, every company is different. So please don't take this as, well, this is exactly what's going to happen. But this is what did happen with one of the companies that came to us. They were looking to get into the DIB, and they were a manufacturing small to medium business. They'd done business with the federal government previously, but they wanted to become compliant with DFARS in order to bid on DoD contracts. So they did a couple of things. First, they joined the DoD's Mentor Protege program. Then they registered for Project Spectrum under a special pilot program specifically for MPP members. Regardless of that pilot program, when they registered for Project Spectrum, they had access to our technical policy information and self-assessments, and then they were able to track their compliance journey and progress on a customized dashboard. We offer that to every user. So when it came to the assessment review and the goal creation with our cyber advisory team, they said, well, this is what we want to achieve. We want to be CMMC level 1, level 2, and we want to be compliant with NIST 800-171. And we need to make it happen within 2 years. So quite frankly, we were able to help them. We helped them to create the SSPs for all of those requirement levels. We helped them to create their required POEMs. We didn't create them for them. We helped them to create them. We gave them the guidance that they needed to do it. We helped them to generate their initial SPURS score. This is the Supplier Performance Risk System. And they got that initial score through our cyber readiness checks. That gave them their baseline. Then we helped them with the steps that were needed to improve that score through the development of the required artifacts, the SSP and the POEM, and the implementation of security controls that corresponded to the desired compliance levels. We were really there to advise them. We wanted to advise them all the way. We evaluated their documented evidentiary claims against their level 1 controls. They requested information on continuous monitoring devices and strategies that would help them to achieve their compliance, and we were able to provide them again with that expert guidance. So they were looking for CMMC and NIST 800-171 compliance. They ended up taking the following actions. They developed an enclave for CMMC for all FCI and CUI data interaction. They created a shared data repository so that they could securely share information with our cyber advisory team. And that, again, really helped them to jump through those hoops needed for the compliance that they were seeking. Then they provided evidence to our advisory team. And again, we helped to evaluate that. We reviewed their security control dashboard, their security policy, their diagrams, infrastructure specifications. We advised them on developing their SSP and POEM for CMMC level 2, NIST 800-171. At the end of it all, the company increased their score by 30 points. They were then able to upload that to the SPURS system, and they were able to start bidding on the contracts that they were looking to bid on because they had the demonstrated level of cybersecurity compliance. We're proud of that case study. We really are. So this is a testimonial, and I'm not going to read this to you. And just so you know, you don't have to hurry up and jot notes or take screenshots. We will be providing you with a copy of this presentation at the end of this webinar. But just want to point out one of the things that the security administrator said about Project Spectrum. The most important takeaway was the education I received as a result. The Project Spectrum team's knowledge of the controls helped them to build a stable infrastructure in a few months. And within that process, the security administrator became the lead for their CMMC compliance. It bolstered that person's knowledge, which then assisted greatly with their audit. This is what Project Spectrum can do. We give you the tools, the training, the resources, and the guidance in order for you to meet your cybersecurity compliance goals. So what are the benefits that you get with Project Spectrum? Well, quite frankly, we have what we feel is a world-class team of cyber advisors, and they come from the small business cybersecurity realm. Understand, there are people that don't speak the language of small businesses. They speak the large business language. And when they say, oh, cybersecurity, you just assign that to these 7 people and they all go in different directions. Our cyber advisors come from small business. They advise small businesses. They're speaking the same language that you are. We also have expert cybersecurity practitioners. They have proven government and industry experience. So again, We understand what it's like to be part of the defense supply chain. We understand procurement rules. We understand DFARS. We understand business and industry and resources. We have all of that knowledge, so we can therefore help you and guide you expertly. We are sponsored and endorsed by DoD OSBP. We're the only cybersecurity initiative that can actually say that. They sponsor us, they endorse us. They have told people time and time again that if you are looking for a resource for cybersecurity, you need to go to Project Spectrum. Project Spectrum also has self-paced tools, training, and resources. And these are developed for both novices and experts alike. We want to make sure that you understand you're able to work at your own pace. If there's a week that you can't dedicate to cybersecurity, you're not going to get dinged. We're not going to put you back a few pegs. We're going to let you continue on at your own pace. And if you're someone who understands what an enclave is, fantastic. Then you're probably up there in the intermediary to expert. If you're someone, when I'm talking about an enclave, you're wondering where the Buick is parked, then you're probably a novice. And we have information for you as well. Last but not least, all of our services are provided at no cost to the user. Again, this does not cost you or your company a thing other than your time and your attention and getting things done. And here you could see on the right-hand side of this slide, these are the best-in-class cybersecurity training and resources that we offer to all of our registered users. So what's next? How do we go forward from here? Well, we want you to connect with Project Spectrum. We want you to attend the training webinars that we're going to continue to hold. We're going to have follow-on webinars with a lot of the information that was presented today. We're taking a broad brush overview, but we're going to get more granular, and we want you to come along for the journey. You should immediately, if not sooner, go to Project Spectrum's website, projectspectrum.io. Make sure that you register there. You then get access to everything that we have available, all of the training, all of the tools, all of the resources. You can reach out to our team. You can reach us at outreach@projectspectrum.io. We are more than happy to answer your questions, provide guidance where we can. Last but not least, follow us on social media. The communications and outreach team puts a lot of time and effort into our social media. We're posting regularly to LinkedIn and X, and we also have some very useful videos and information up on YouTube. So go ahead and follow us on our social media sites to get all of that great information. So again, we don't want you to hesitate. We want you to connect with us today. So one of the easiest things to do after this webinar, please go ahead, begin your cybersecurity journey with Project Spectrum by reaching out to us, outreach@projectspectrum.io. We are, again, more than happy to answer your questions, provide you with that guidance. Now, this is, again, where we're going to ask you for something. We've given you all of this information. Hopefully, you're going to take just a few moments to help us out. We want you to help shape our presentations and content going forward. So following this webinar, you're going to receive a training evaluation. That is going to come from an email address, communications@echelon.com. It really should take 1 minute or less. If you want to write more, we certainly understand that, but we really do welcome your feedback. That's going to help us to continue to make these presentations better, continue to make them more useful to you, and continue to give you everything that you need along your cybersecurity compliance journey. So now is the time when we're going to open things up to questions. And again, we have other members of the Project Spectrum team, and we have been going along and answering things as we go through. But if you have questions, please go ahead and type them into the chat now, and we'll go ahead and see if we can get those answered for you.
All right, thanks, Rick. Again, before we get started on Q&A, if anyone doesn't hear their question asked, please feel free to put it back in the chat. I would hate for anything to get lost between the cracks. Let's get started with a question that was pre-submitted before the webinar from Joe Mullins of Veronord Solutions. As a small startup company, how do companies with less than 10 people afford the full CMMC suite of requirements to be fully compliant? And with much lower revenue, the barrier to entry is quite expensive and impossible to fully pass along to the government customer, or you price yourself out. We definitely want to be fully compliant and agree with the justification to do so. but the costs to meet the compliance are quite steep for a very small company.
Well, again, one of the things that we like to remind everyone is that our services, our tools, our training, and our resources are available at no cost. Now, does that mean that there is no cost whatsoever? No. The cost on your end, obviously, is the resources, is the time and the people power that you're going to have to put into developing everything that you need in order to maintain or gain that compliance and continue that cybersecurity compliance journey. I wish I could put a definite price tag on something. We even have somebody in the chat who's saying, for a two-person business, what is the cost associated? Again, it really depends on the amount of resources that you're able to dedicate. If you're able to dedicate one person 10 hours a week, then, that's what you're going to be able to dedicate. If you're able to only dedicate half a person, which I've never quite understood how you could dedicate half a person, but maybe it's the left half, maybe it's the right half, I'm not sure. But half a person for 2 hours a week, it again, all of that is the cost that we can't really put a price tag on because every business is different. But I can assure you that along the way, the resources from Project Spectrum, the advice from our expert cyber advisors, all of our tools and training and resources, all of the courses, all of that remains no cost. And then the other tools that you may need to implement, we have tool reviews that are available on our website that we've pointed people to, where again, vendor agnostic, we're not pointing you in any one direction or another. We're just trying to let you know what's out there. There is a cost to those particular tools. Our cyber advisors will work with you as you're developing your plans, as you're going through, and we will help you and we will guide you so that you understand that things can be done in the most cost efficient and effective way as possible.
All right, thank you. Next up, I believe Richard may have already tackled this in the chat, but just in case, question from Maricela Bateman. I have cyber insurance. Can someone review it and let me know if it's enough or if I need more?
All right. Richard, I think you may have handled this, so I don't want to say anything that goes against what you had said.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. This is Richard Rowe. I'm director of Project Spectrum. And yes, we've been asked that question many, many times. And our cyber advisors can work with you to assess your infrastructure and your asset base and make sure that your level is correct. So yes, that will be part of the cyber advisory services.
Fantastic. And glad to know that I was going to answer that correctly. It's, again, everything is different. Everybody has a different need. Everybody has a different business case. Everybody has a different business, and, your margins and your operating revenue and expenses, they're all part of that as well. So everything is different. But that, again, is why our cyber advisory services are so important, because we are able to answer these questions for multiple types of businesses and multiple types of organizations, whether it's one person, two people, 10 people, 50 people, or 10,000. We are more than happy to provide that guidance.
All right, next up, we have a question from Mike. For CMMC Level 2, how do I know if I can do a self-assessment or if I require a formal audit?
So all of that is part of the data that you are handling. It's either prioritized or non-prioritized. And again, our cyber advisors can certainly walk with you through that. But for non-prioritized, you can do the self-assessments. For prioritized, there is a whole other set of rules when it comes to CMMC Level 2. We're going to do a deeper dive on that particular subject, CMMC Level 1 and CMMC Level 2. We're going to do deeper dives with further webinars. Our training courses can also help you understand that. We do have those courses available to Project Spectrum users. And last but not least, we have our cyber advisors. They can also answer those questions for you.
All right, next up, we have a question from Justin Emery. How can Apex accelerators better utilize Project Spectrum to benefit our soon-to-be or already DIB-ready clients?
Nope, not a problem. So we are really proud to work with Apex Accelerators. We are doing presentations like this constantly for Apex Accelerators and their constituencies. So, again, it's all about reaching out to us, getting on our schedule, getting with our outreach team so that we could schedule these things. Getting people registered for Project Spectrum is another thing. Apex Accelerators or any other organizations, we encourage you to encourage others to register for Project Spectrum because, again, it's a no cost resource. And we want to make sure that everybody is taking full advantage of everything that we have to offer. But again, if you're looking to do something very specific, like have us present to to the companies that you're working with, please just reach out to us, outreach@projectspectrum.io. We're more than happy to put that on the schedule, come out, talk to you, and provide you with whatever guidance we can.
Okay, before I jump to the next question, I see that we have one attendee with their hand up, Diane with no last name. Because mics are turned off, if you have a question, please just drop it in the chat and we will get to it hopefully before the end of the webinar. And next up, we have a question from Robert Bailey. Will the Project Spectrum team speak to the high cost of assessment audits, i.e. SBRS scores? Where can a small business get help with meeting that requirement?
So again, our resources are no cost. And as you saw with the case study that we presented before, when you're developing that SPUR score and you're developing that baseline, and then you're working to make sure that you're improving upon that baseline, that's where our cyber advisors come into play. We will help you develop all of that. Again, when it comes to the cost, this is a very subjective area. And we understand that even with no cost resources like we offer, that companies are still, particularly smaller companies, are still resource challenged. So it's tough to try to dedicate a single person to the effort and give as much time and effort as you can. That's why our system, again, is self-paced. We're giving you the opportunity to go along your own pace to make sure that you are getting what you need to keep improving that SPUR score. You can see your progress on our dashboard as you go through each exercise, as you go through each training course. You can see that score increase, and eventually you're going to get to where you need to be.
All right, next up we have a question from Leslie Peacock. Any resources for more clear definitions of CUI? The CUI registry is clear as mud.
Yes, it is, isn't it? And yes, we certainly do have that. As a matter of fact, once again, this is where I'm going to put in a little plug for our training resources, because if you register for Project Spectrum and you go to our training platform, which we call Insight, our learning management system, we have a course on CUI where it gives better definitions and it gives examples and it lets you know a lot more, we'll say in a lot clearer language, we'll put it that way. It lets you know what CUI is and how you can help to protect it.
All right, looks like we have time for a few more questions. Here's one from Joseph Milo, who asks, actually, what is your opinion on using MSPs?
Managed service providers. So, again, when it comes to any type of managed service provider, there are going to be caveats. And so this is, again, one of those subjective areas where we would say work with our cyber advisors. They can help you to take a look at, whatever MSP you might be looking to utilize. They can help guide you as far as what protocols you're going to need to put in place, what you're going to need to do, and what you're not going to want to do. They can advise you on everything except for how much should you pay. But a lot of times we'll still provide at least an opinion on that. But again, we're not going to tell a company what they should or shouldn't spend. But this is one of those areas where our cyber advisors more than happy to jump in and give you their expert opinion on what your company is looking to do and what you're going to need to do to accomplish it.
Okay, it looks like we may have time for one more question here. I don't want to keep anyone past the end of the hour, but again, if anyone has any questions beyond this or that we missed, please, again, reach out to outreach@projectspectrum.io. Last question, Pete Okrasa apologies if I misspelled that or mispronounced it. Is cybersecurity insurer solvency important? What's a good criteria to choose?
Insurer insolvency or solvency is very important. You want to make sure that you're getting insurance through a very reputable insurer and that they're going to have the assets needed, because again, there are a lot of variables when it comes to what you're going to have to pay out if you're part of a cybersecurity breach. And so it is very important. Again, can we advise you? We can provide some guidance. But it is certainly something that you're going to want to research. You're going to want to make sure that you're going with the proper outfit that is going to be able to help you recover. All right, so we're going to go ahead and stop the questions there. Again, we are trying to answer as many of them in the chat as we can. So hopefully the Project Spectrum team will continue to answer questions in the chat. So don't necessarily leave the chat if you have a question that's still open. But if you have a question that ends up not getting answered, you didn't get a chance to ask it, or you didn't get an answer that really made a lot of sense and you need more information, or sometimes you just want to chat about something, that is where reaching out to us at outreach@projectspectrum.io will certainly help. Please email us as you can. So again, we want to make sure that we say, first of all, thank you. Thank you for letting us be part of your day and for letting us be part of your cybersecurity journey. Now, again, if you're looking to contact us, I did see one question. Where does Echelon play into this? Project Spectrum is administered through Echelon. And this is how you can get a hold of us. We're located in Hanover, Maryland. Our website, of course, is projectspectrum.io. Richard, who is wonderful to jump on earlier and answer one of those questions, is our Director of Cybersecurity Initiatives for Project Spectrum. This is how you can get a hold of Richard. And Mark, thank you so much for helping to moderate all the questions, keeping everything running on the technical side. Mark is a senior editor on our communications and outreach team, and this is how you can reach out to Mark. So again, from all of us at Project Spectrum, thank you so much for joining today. We're sorry we're a few minutes over, but we do appreciate you hanging in there, and we certainly wish you the best of success in your continued cybersecurity journey, and we hope to be a part of that journey. Thanks, and have a great day.